because I myself know, and I teach to others, that recognizing your wholeness, recognizing that you are already complete before you walk into the painting studio is so critical to painting and joy. And so I'm going to ask you to recognize your wholeness in life. Good day, spiritual artist. This is CJ Miller, the host of the Spiritual Artist Podcast, and I just look forward to this great day today. And I wanted to share something that I realized about myself, and I'm going to try to walk through this and explain it as best I can. It's a little challenging. I stay away from talking about beliefs because they're very complicated beliefs, and how they work and how they direct your life are very powerful. But as a spiritual artist, I also talk about the importance of watching yourself, watching your process in the art studio, as well as watching your process in life. And so I want to share something that I discovered about myself that has several layers to it about my belief system and how maybe it wasn't serving me the best. So as a spiritual artist, you stand back and you become the watcher and you watch yourself. And so you start noticing things about yourself. So here's my story. I got up this morning, and as always, the first thing I do is I get up and I pad into the kitchen. And before I even make a cup of coffee, I'm feeding the dogs. And we have three dogs, not just one, not two, but three. And they love their morning feeding. And so I'm opening cans of soft food and I'm making their food. And then I look out the window, and as I've shared with you before, I have a lot of birds outside that come to see me. So I go and I grab a scoop of bird seed and I go out to the feeder and I put food in the bird feeder. It doesn't end there, folks. I still haven't had my breakfast. I realize I have to feed my fish. I have a koi pond. And so I go and I get the koi food and I go out there and I toss it in the koi pond and make sure the filter's working correctly and make sure everything's moving along. And then I notice on my deck, I have tons of plants because I love gardening. I have tons of plants. And so I make sure that they're all watered because if you live in Dallas, Texas, you know that a plant can die in a single day in our heat if it is not properly watered. So I go around and I water the plants. And then I get back into the kitchen and it's time for my coffee. It's time for me. I thought about that for a while and I thought there's something wacky here. And while I'm making my coffee, my husband comes in and asks for something and I have to go find it for him. And then my son texts me and says he needs something for work and I go and find it for him and put it in the washing machine actually because he did not put it in the washing machine. And then I start emptying the dishwasher. How many of you can relate to this? And especially, I'm gonna be a little sexist maybe in the sense that especially women in our society, and since I'm feeling this, I'm sure there's other men also, but this is a big challenge, especially as a woman in today's society. Um, and I'll tell you, for me, what the challenge was is I've always prided myself on being maternal, on taking care of things, people, others. Hear that? I've always prided myself on being maternal. And so I look around at the life that I created and I've realized that I have literally created a lot of dependent people on me. Now, a lot of you might say, oh, they're not dependent on you. You're just going out there and you're sharing. And I know because that voice in my head was triggering that as well. Oh no, Chris, this is because you're such a good person. You care about others. This is because you really care about others and you want to help others and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the truth of the matter is, yes, I do care about others and I love helping others, but I've created a life. I realize I created a life where so many things need me. So many things need me that it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And that can come down on you. And I especially say this to a lot of women in our society because they're expected to take care of a home and make the meal and then also have a job and bring in just as much money as anybody else. And oh my gosh, the pressures. And so if you relate to me on this, I'm going to tell you what I just did. It was a big step for me because this is not something you can solve. The belief system is that I love people and I give to people. But I decided to look behind the belief system. What does it give me? And this is what I ask you. When you look around and you watch yourself today, if you find something in your habits, some habitual habit that you have, ask yourself, how does this serve me? Why could I be doing this? Not on the wonderful level of giving to others, but I'm looking below it. What is the part of the meaning of why I do this? And I realized that maybe there was something a little insecure in me. And so I'm going to be vulnerable and share that with you listeners, is maybe I felt like I had to justify, or I have to justify my worth. If I can have a koi pond and dogs and fish and a garden and plants and paints and painting and a podcast, if I have all these things, then I must surely be worthy. Oh, that's a wicked trap, isn't it? Because I myself know, and I teach to others, that recognizing your wholeness, recognizing that you are already complete before you walk into the painting studio is so critical to painting in joy. And so I'm going to ask you to recognize your wholeness in life. Hear that? I'm going to ask you to recognize your wholeness in life. You don't have to go out and prove that you're a valuable expression of God or spirit. You are already a valuable, unique, individualized expression of spirit, and you are special and valuable right now. And suddenly I realized, why did I feel insecure? Why was I trying to create all these codependent relationships? I had made a full-time job out of this, didn't I? I have created a life that is a full-time job of taking care of others. So when I recognize that I've created this world, I also recognize that I am at choice. And I love to share this with my listeners. You are always at choice. Do you hear that? You're always at choice. Once you recognize and watch yourself and see the habit and how you're living life, you can step back and say, okay, do I want to keep doing this? And so there's something else I didn't share with my listeners. There's one actual step in all that morning routine that I've actually eliminated. 3 weeks ago, let me tell you just how crazy I am. I actually also had a fish tank. So not only did I have all those living creatures depending on me, I had a fish tank inside, a huge 70-gallon fish tank with tons of fish, shrimp, and all sorts of creatures, live plants in that fish tank. And you know what I decided to do? When I recognized this pattern, this belief system, this insecurity that I needed to validate myself by creating dependency, I sold it. I got rid of the fish tank. I got rid of the fish tank because normally part of my routine would be going in and feeding those fish and adding water into that fish tank and making sure that everything, the filter was working correctly. Guess what? This morning, I did not have to do that. I did not have to go into my study and check on the fish. I took one thing off the plate. So changing behavior is not something you can do overnight. I'm not suddenly going to have a carefree, easygoing life because I like those things. I like some of those things. I like having a koi pond. Maybe the plants could go a little bit. Maybe in this heat, living in Dallas with these record temperature summers, I could let that go. So it's a slowly gradual shifting of who you are. And so I've decided from here on, I don't have to have a fish tank. I don't need a fish tank. One less dependency. And now I can examine these other aspects of me. Do I appreciate it? Do I need to do it? Do I need to prove that I'm valuable? So I ask all my listeners out there, especially the women, because you guys carry so much weight. And I appreciate this because I was kind of the caregiver when we adopted my son at 6 months. And I stepped back from my career. Actually, I did not step back from my career. I kept my career and still raised the son, still went to PTA meetings, still went to all those expectations, still made brownies, still brought in treats for the class, all those layers, folks. And I ask you to look at your life and say, do I still need to be the caregiver of the world? There's a deeper lesson to this. Not only was there a lesson of recognizing that I'm whole, but I want to share another level, another spiritual belief. God will take care of it. It is not my job to take care of everything. I need to trust that this creative intelligence that operates this entire solar system, planet, universe, and my life is working for me and directing me and making things go in order. So God will take care of it. So you can release those things. So if right now you're sitting there going, oh, Chris, you know what? That sounds great, but I'm not giving up a thing. I am needed. I want you to question yourself and say, don't you think that God can take care of it? Creative intelligence, spirit, whatever name you want to use for this greater power is a personal decision, but that power is backing you. It's got your back and is taking care of it. So trust that today and let go of something. So everybody listening to this, men, women alike, look at your life. Is there something, some obligation that you've been doing in rote? And by rote, I mean because you always did it and you seem to think you have to always do it. And this is part of my life. Can you let it go? Can you let something out of your life? If so, do that. Let it out. Let it go and let spirit take it over. Give it to the hands of a higher intelligence and free yourself. And that means that you can sit. You can sit with a cup of coffee and you can look out the window and you can watch the birds or the trees or the automatic action of nature, knowing that it's all taken care of. And God has it. Good day. Thank you for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. And I ask you, forward this. If you're listening to this on a player, please forward this episode to a friend that might need to hear it, a friend that maybe has too much on his or her plate, someone that you know could use this, because that helps me expand my audience. And I do recognize that you are the reason I do this, and a little bit of me. And a little bit of me. So you have a great day and enjoy being a spiritual artist. Thank you. Thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Whether you're watching this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, make sure you choose the subscribe button so that you will receive updates when new segments are released. Most importantly, be still, listen, and know that you are a spiritual artist.